Okay, welcome everybody to CloudFORMS and ServiceNOw. It seems, how many people have we got? We've got 25 people who want to learn ServiceNOw. Hopefully ServiceNOw is important to you, so let's crack on with that. First things first, this is a live session, so you're going to be giving yourself, I'm going to give you an AWS instance for you to keep for the next 4 hours. Okay, so tonight I will terminate the instances. But if you want to export the data store, play with it a little bit more, then you're free to do that up until the end of tonight, then I'll terminate them, okay? But you will get your own individual AWS instance. You can see that here. If I go back a wee bit, you should be able to see here a whole load of instances. Now, each of these instances have been given out already, some of them. So if I go to Etherpad, let me share this link with you in the chat room. Okay, let's go to the chat room. Okay, there's the Etherpad link. If there are any partners on this call now, then I need those partners to identify themselves in the chat window. Okay, so for everybody else, if you were not in my previous session, just before this one, about auto-scaling, if you were not in that session, then you're going to need yourselves a CloudFORMS instance. And the way you're going to do that is you're going to go to that Etherpad link and you're going to go and take one of those IP addresses without a name next to them. Okay, so if I go to the Etherpad link, you can see here that in the previous session, here's all the people who went and took a CloudFORMS instance. Okay, so if you want to go and take a CloudFORMS instance from this list, there's 50 odd there, so there's still some space. Okay, go and take, that's it, perfect. Okay, so I can see some people doing that now. Okay, so great. So take a CloudFORMS instance and then go and log it in. To log into the CloudFORMS instance, you need to log in as admin, and you also need to log in with the password of open source 2014 with a capital O for open source. Okay. Okay, so there's no partners who need assistance, so I will crack on. Let's go back to the presentation and let's make a start on what it is we're going to do then. Okay, so it's a practical workshop. We're going to basically hook up ServiceNOw to CloudFORMS. Okay, so if you enter a POC which has got ServiceNOw, you're going to need to know how to do this. And you can sort of take the easy route out and say, hey, you want ServiceNOw, you do it. Okay, but obviously it's a lot better if we can obviously take that and deal with it ourselves, particularly for debugging and understanding how it works. And also it looks pretty cool, right? So, and you're going to see that. I'm going to give you a little demo of some pretty cool stuff at the end. Now, let's work on your stuff. We're going to connect ServiceNOw to CloudFORMS, and we're going to do that using SOAP. Okay, this is a sample SOAP envelope on the screen now. And you can see that in the sample SOAP I'm giving you on screen, there are a whole load of fields here, okay, like GUIDs, like key pairs and placement availability zones. But instead of it saying like US East 1A, it's saying 1,000,000,001. How do I know that US East 1A is 1,000,000,001? Why isn't it 1,000,000,002? Who knows, right? So what we need to do is we need to have an understanding in CloudFORMS how we're going to get this information. Okay, so I'd like to teach you that first. Okay, is some of the theories or more of the practical stuff on how to do it rather than just demoing it. So here's the first recommendation I tell you to do. Okay, and that is there is a step in provisioning. Okay, there are many steps in provisioning. There's approval, there's quota. Okay, but there's also provision. In other words, hey, I asked you to provision, a new copy of Rails 7. So at some point, presumably after approval, after quota, you're actually going to do the provision of Rails 7. Well, what we can do is we can edit that step and we can say, at the time of provision, I want you to dump out all of the data that you've collected on your journey to get to the point of provisioning Rel 7. I want you to dump that to the log file. Now, the reason why I want you to do that is because when you do that dump, you're going to see something like this in the log file, which is going to be all of that information in that journey. Remember, the journey is through approvals, through quotas, through best fit placement, and so on, the naming of the VM. So this data here you're going to see in the log file just before provision is everything it's going to use to actually do the provision with. There's no more steps to massage that data. This is the real data. And as you can see, it's exposing to us at this time exactly the security groups, the availability zones, the numerical values for those. In other words, well, the GUIDs that CloudFORMS uses to describe them. Okay, so how do we actually do that change? Let's just go back a step, slide 5, okay? And you can see that I would like you to put in, okay, into your code these lines here. Okay. Now, it's very easy to write that, fairly quick. If you want to do some cutting and pasting, the decks are available. And the decks are available. If you're on my previous session, you're probably already there. Let me take this link and I'll put it into the chat window for you. There you go. In the chat window, you can see a link to a Dropbox. And in that Dropbox, there is auto-scale materials. We're not doing that one anymore, so you don't need to go there. But there is the ServiceNOw presentation. Okay, so if you click on that ServiceNOw presentation, you will be able to see exactly what it is I am presenting, and then you can cut and paste from their values that you're going to need throughout ServiceNOw and CloudFORMS. Okay, let's go and actually do this change then. Let's go and change the provisioning state machine so that it dumps out the values of the provisioning object just before it does a provision. Okay, so I'm going to take these lines, I'm going to copy them, okay, and I'm going to go to my CloudFORMS instance. So let's go to Automate and Explorer. So you should be logged into your CloudFORMS instance. Click on Automate and Explorer. And in here, we are looking for, I'll just close all of this up so it looks nicer for you. I would like you to go to Automate and Explorer, and then in there, select Factory and then VM. Okay, so Factory and then VM. So in VM, you should find a method. The first load of things are called instances. But on the left-hand side, if you scroll that down and find an instance called provision. This is the actual step that performs the actual provision to Amazon, to OpenStack, to VMware, to Rev, and so on, right? So click on Configuration and click Edit this method. Okay? So when you edit the method, you can now type in here. Now, I am telling you to put it after the prov equals $EVM root. So that's what I need you to do. I need you to put into the method that bit of text, that bit of code, okay? In other words, after we've grabbed the object, but before we actually do the provision, okay, which is there, that's the actual provision, right? We're going to dump the items, the content items to the log file. Click Save. Now I'm just going to check the chat window, make sure that everybody's good and happy. Okay, no complaints so far. So looking at that change, what we're now going to do is we're actually going to go and want to do the provision. Okay, so let's go back to the deck. Okay, and it says let's provision a real CloudFORMS instance now. So let's go and provision something using CloudFORMS so that we can see that change that we've made. Okay, so click on Clouds and Instances, and then click Lifecycle Provision. And then this is the data that you want to provision against. Very important. The template that you select must be rel 64 test. Put in your data, and then the rest of it, you can see here. The instance name must be change me, don't actually change it to something else, call it change me. Okay. And then availability zone is US East 1A, instance type is T1 micro, guest access key pair is Red Hat default, and the CloudWatch is still set to basic. So I'm going to do that in front of you now. You'll have the chance to follow along with me. So go to Clouds and Instances. Right. You should be up at the top, instances by provider. You can click Lifecycle Provision Instances. And remember, scroll through this list and find rel 64 test. There she is there. Okay, rel 64 test. Click Continue. Right, moving along. John, what's my name? Jay Hardy. redhat.com. John Hardy. Right, catalog. Change me. Okay. Environment. US East 1A. Properties. Instance type is T1 micro. Red Hat default. Okay, so that's the three options there. CloudWatch basic. So, and then click submit. Okay, so when you click a submit on that, you'll see that it goes into the queue. It should be called tweet load, by the way. That's just some history from Summit. It's auto-approved. If you click reload on this, you'll see that it's auto-approving. Provisioning request created. What we're doing is waiting here until it says clone. Once it says that it's actually cloning the instance, then we'll go and have a look at the log. Okay, so it's acquiring IP address now. It's doing pre-provision, so we're getting pretty close. There you go, creating VM. So it's pretty much there. Let's go and click on automate and click on log now. And if you click the reload on your automation log, it'll go to the bottom for you automatically. As well as take some time to get there. Okay, if we scroll up a little bit, there it is there, okay? So there's the lots of pluses, okay, in my log. And you can see now I've got all of the values that I need to provision an instance in US East 1A. Its availability zone number is 1 and lots of zeros and 1. If I want Red Hat _ default key pair, then I need to specify the ID of 1, 0, lots of zeros and 3. Okay, so hopefully you've learned here that if you want to know what the values are for the plain English terms, like Red Hat _ default key pair, then you need to do the dump of the object to the log. That's basically how you're going to do it. Okay, Let's go and do some ServiceNow stuff now, because that's what we're all here to do. All right. Let's all log on to the Red Hat ManageIQ Dev ServiceNow instance. Okay, that is the address here. https://manageiqdev.service-now.com. You can log on as admin and admin. Okay. I'm just going to check and see how everybody's doing. Is everybody doing good? Let's see how many instances. Did everybody provision? How many? Okay, good. So some people have provisioned a virtual machine, okay. Me, basically. Okay, I'll just ask, is everybody having problems? Is anybody having serious problems with doing a provision of an instance? On the chat. Anybody want to raise any questions at the moment on the chat window? Okay, moving on then. If you look in the ServiceNow, okay, so in ServiceNow, this is the front screen. Okay, we are in as admin, so you know, this is not as horrible as it usually looks. Usually it has lots of nice, pretty graphs for the users to look at. But in this case, what we're going to do is we're going to go straight to SOAP. Okay, we're going to go and create something in here, which is SOAP. So on the left-hand side, can you scroll that menu down until you get to SOAP? Outbound SOAP message, right near the bottom. Okay. Now, we are all sharing the same ServiceNow instance, so you do need to be unique here, okay? Unique as in create your SOAP message after your name, okay? So that then it's unique, all right? So you can see here's a test I did earlier. I will create a new one to work alongside you guys. So, presentation says, select a SOAP message from the left-hand menu list and select new. Okay, create a new SOAP service. Okay, which is your name, and point it to your CloudFORMS appliance. Okay, now remember, you all have unique CloudFORMS appliances. You need to put your IP address of your CloudFORMS appliance in here. So let me go to mine. My IP address is 54.83.250.94. So in ServiceNow, it's saying, click new and type in your name. Okay? And then click on the little padlock, the WSDL padlock, and you can now type in an address. There's my IP, HTTPS. Okay, now we have to put in the rest of the URL, okay, which is vmdb.ws/WSDL. WSDL. Okay, so vmdb.ws/WSDL. It also tells you to configure authentication. So under use basic auth over here on the right hand side, turn that guy on and put in your logon credentials. I don't want you to use admin. I would like you to use a new user, and that new user is called snow_ws. Okay, ServiceNow_ws. And the basic user authentication password is open source 2014. Give you a second to catch up. Okay. The next thing it says to do is to click a generate SOAP message. All right, and then you'll get a whole load of data, and then you can click update. Okay, so generate sample SOAP message. This is going to test to make sure that the URL you set for the WSDL parameter and your user ID and password are correct. And when you click update, you can when you click generate sample SOAP messages, you can see that you actually get the functions back from CloudFORMS for its SOAP API. So click update to save it. Okay, so we've got one person so far managed to do this. Okay, does anybody want to come onto the chat window and ask for assistance? I only have literally one person who's managed to do this. Yes, Stephen, we've identified you are that one person. Okay, I'll give it a minute more, so I mean to see if anybody else really wants to try and get ServiceNOW working. Okay, Stephen, it looks like it's just you and me then. Okay, if you would like to open up the SOAP message, okay, so I'm going to open up John Hardy 2. You can see the settings that you've already applied. So the next thing to do now is to actually go and configure up the SOAP function that we want to actually go and execute. So what we want to do here is on slide 10, okay, we want to open up our name, which we've just done. We can see the functions that have been returned. The next thing to do is find the function called VM provision request. Now, there's lots of functions in the SOAP API for CloudFORMS. Okay, you're looking for a very specific one called VM provision request. Okay, so I can tell you now that the quickest way to find that is just go right to the end of the SOAP messages. So in ServiceNOW, click on the last page of functions. Okay, and in that last page, you'll find a VM provision request. If you'd like to open that up, you can see here that there is a default SOAP envelope. Okay, and that default SOAP envelope has a number of parameters in here that need to be filled out. Now remember, I've just shown you how to find those parameters. Okay, for virtues of this class, I would like you to cut and paste a ready prepared SOAP envelope. And you can see that here. In the presentation deck, copy that SOAP envelope. Like so. And replace the one inside of ServiceNOW. and then click Update. You'll notice that the SOAP envelope that you've cut and pasted in by reopening up VM provision request, you'll notice that it's got the name of the template. Okay, it's got the GUID for the template already there. It's got a load of details like the first name and last name of the user. Okay, but what it is actually missing is, well, what's the security key pair? What's the availability zone? What's the the Cloud Watch parameters? Where are all of those? Well, they are stored inside of this variable here, VM fields. Okay, so in VM fields, we now need to substitute in those values. Now we can do that by selecting SOAP message parameters and clicking New. Okay. Now, if we just go back to the presentation deck and follow that, it says create a new SOAP message parameter and you call it VM fields. Okay, must be the same case, like so. Okay, so in the name field, put VM fields. And in this value field here, we must now put in the values that we want to do. Let's go back to the presentation and copy that value string. All of that. Okay, so if you copy that VM value string and then put it into there, like so, you can now see that we're now setting the instance type, the placement, the access keys, availability zone, security groups. They're all being placed inside of this VM field key here. Now you can use, clearly, you can use ServiceNOW to go and dynamically get those values using SOAP calls. Okay, so that's how you're going to do it. You're gonna turn around and say inside a catalog item, which availability zone do you want to put it into? And then you're going to offer them choices, and those choices will obviously evaluate to the IDs, which then can be placed into this value string. If you click Submit on creating that message parameter, okay, if you scroll down, you can now see you've got VM fields and you've got your fields there. They're going to substitute into that variable there. You look in the SOAP envelope, I've highlighted it for you. Okay, the presentation says the next thing is click Test. Okay, so believe it or not, if you've done everything correctly, when you click Test, it's going to do something. Okay, and that do something is actually access denied. Why is this? Well, because we only authenticated to get the WSDL. We haven't actually authenticated on the individual function. And of course, you want to allow different authentication levels for different functions. So let's go back, click on SOAP message, open up your SOAP message. Okay, go right to the end of your SOAP message, get the VM function list. VM provision request. Okay, there it is there. And guess what? You need to actually give this VM provision request function, you must give it authentication. So click on Use Basic Auth and put in there snow_ws open source 2014. Then click Update. Okay, so with authentication now set on the actual request, we can now go back, click up VM provision request, and click Test again. Now this time when we click test, it's going to authenticate and hopefully do something. Now for the one person who's actually done this, Stephen, you should now have a response XML like so. And you can see here that VM provisioning request created, it's okay, and all of the parameters. Now, if you want to believe that CloudFORMS has done something, that CloudFORMS has accepted this, then click on CloudFORMS Management Server and go to Services and Requests, and you should actually now see a provisioning happening. And you can see mine is there. There it is there. Automation started. Now that automation starting is happening because I've tested the provisioning API. And you can actually see here that the requester is ServiceNOW_WS, just to give you more proof. Okay, so Stephen, I can see that you're saying that yours is pending. Is that because it's probably just waiting approval or something? But if CloudFORMS has accepted it, then it should then go on and clone and deliver you an instance. Now, the last bit is, if you noticed inside of this, let's go to presentation, you notice inside of the return XML that you got, it had a field there called ID, and it gives you the number. That ID is the request number. Okay, now that's very important when dealing with SOAP web services, because with SOAP you fire it, but it's stateless. So you need to go back and ask for the state. Okay, so we need to go back to CloudFORMS and say, hey, CloudFORMS, can you tell me what's going on with this request? And to do that, you're going to need the request number. Okay, so that's very easy inside of ServiceNow. Let's go to the XML. There's my request number there. Okay, if I copy that, I can now go and get ServiceNow to do another SOAP request to go and request the status of a particular provisioning job. Clearly, all I need to do is click on SOAP messages, click on me, okay? And when I see the list of functions, I need to find the function that is going to do that for me. Now, if we go to the deck, you see here, I've highlighted the actual function that will return me information on a request. And it's called get VM provision request. So let's go to ServiceNow and find get VM provision request. Now, you have to go through, it's on page 4 or 5, I think. Here we go. Right, so get VM provision request. There she is. Okay, so if I open that guy up, remember, we need authentication. So let's do that first. Use basic authentication. So there's use basic auth. No WS is our user. And the password is open source 2014. Now I've cut and pasted, I cut into my clipboard the request, change that ServiceNow variable and statically put it in. There I have. And if I now do test, the status code is 200, which is a good sign. Response, we can see here that it was a provision from rel 64 to tweetload 243. It was approved. This is when it was created. The user who did it is current state is finished, it's completed, and it's provisioned successfully. Okay, so I can get all of the data back on that provisioning request job from ServiceNow. So I can have ServiceNow basically interact with CloudForms to not only just provision out something, but also give status back to the user on screen. Okay, so in ServiceNow, your ServiceNow junkie, you can create little status queues, and you can update that status queue with live data from CloudForms as it's going through its job. In other words, as it's passed approval, as it's passed quota. Okay. Stephen, do you want to put into the chat window, have you been successful so far? I'm going to take you on to, with 20 minutes left, I'm going to take you on to some other stuff. I don't expect you to follow here because this is a little bit more advanced. There is a... What should I change on the Get VM screen? Stephen, are you requesting information on trying to get the request, or have you provisioned? Okay, so you provisioned. So what the second thing we were going to, well, the second thing we just did was on SOAP message. If you go into the functions, you're looking for a function called Get VM Provision Request. Okay, so scroll through to Get VM Provision Request. It's on about the 5th page, 6th page. Okay, and I've highlighted it on the screen there. If you open that guy up, Get VM Provision Request, you need to change the request ID field to match that of the request ID that you created. Now, if you do that and you click test, what ServiceNow will do is he will execute a SOAP get VM provision request call to CloudForms for that ID, and then CloudForms will return you the information for that ID. And that ID will contain all of the provisioning request information. If I click test, you can see there's the response that comes back. Okay, so what's the other things you can do with ServiceNow whilst we're coming towards the end of this session? The stuff that I don't expect you to follow, but does look really good if you want to go further with this sort of thing, is if you look at the presentation deck now, if I make it bigger for you. So you can see here on the deck slide, there's a nice looking approval workflow thing going on. So, people have said to me, why doesn't CloudForms have a drag and drop service designer? Okay, well, it may do one day, but for just now, if they've got ServiceNow, what you can say is, but that doesn't matter to you because you've got ServiceNow. Surely you'd want to integrate ServiceNow with CloudForms. And they would sort of nod their head going, yeah. You go, but you can use their service designer to actually create CloudForms services. Why not? Of course you can. So let's go and do some of that now, okay? And I'm going to show you how to create that, if I can remember, that is. So the first thing to do is think about the SOAP message. If we go to the SOAP message, and in here at the end, it was called VM provision request. Okay, so there's that VM provision request with the SOAP envelope that's going to provision a RHEL 6.4 test machine. That's effectively a catalog item, right? So you can create more of these guys. You can create a catalog item for web server, a catalog item for database, and so on. Just as much as you can create individual SOAP requests inside of ServiceNow for web server or for load balancer or for database. Now, there was an interesting bit of script here. Preview script usage. Okay, so what does that do? If I click on that, it comes up with some nasty JavaScript. Okay, so there's the nasty JavaScript. So I can copy that there, okay, and use that later on. So how am I going to use that? Now they have a lovely, lovely thing in here called Workflow Editor on the left-hand side here. Like I said, I'm not expecting you guys to follow this at this time, but what we can do is we can click on New, and there is in here, I'm trying to think what it's called. Requested item. I think this is the guy here. Okay, the table that we want to do it off is a requested item. Okay, and 25 workflow, and that's probably all I need on here. I don't think I need anything else at the moment. That will do me fine. So here's a new workflow template. There it is. There's the beginning. There's the end. Okay, let's just move this out a little bit. All right. So we want approval. So why don't we just drag and drop approval in there? Dun, dun, dun. Okay, and I don't think we need anything else. We just need to do that. There we go, we've got approval. So as simple as that, I've now added to this workflow that when it starts, it's going to ask for approval. The default action is going to be approved. Secondary actions are rejected. Now, the next thing I want to do is add a script. So run the script. The script is going to be the cut and paste from ServiceNow itself. There you go. Now I can, on the right-hand side, variabilize all of this from fields. And those fields could come from a catalog item. In other words, like you can inside of CloudFORMS, create drop-downs and radio buttons and all those sort of features, you can do the same inside of ServiceNow as well. And those values from those fields that the user selects can drive into this script. So if it's approved, it's going to run the script. Now there was let me just put a approval action. Let's put that guy there and say mark as rejected. Okay, so I'm putting an action in for approval, marking it as rejected, and I'm going to drag and drop the rejected to there. There you go. So very easily, I'll be able to basically put an approval state in there, which is a ServiceNow approval. This is not a CloudFORMS approval, this is ServiceNow. Okay. It's going to, if approved, it's going to run the script, and if it's rejected, it's going to kill the, it's going to mark the approval as rejected. Okay. I can now run this workflow, I believe, which was right. Sorry about that. Apple Mac that always works just failed me and logged me out of my session. Hopefully you can all hear me again. Right. And also, when it logged me out, I hadn't saved my workflow. So I've also lost all my workflow. So let's go and do that very quickly because we are very, we have got a few seconds left. Okay, so, and it would be nice to see this one. Okay, requested item, there you go. Johnny 5 workflow 2. Submit. Okay, so you get to see it twice. We're going to drag the end state right out. We're going to put approval in, okay, approval user. So let's drag that approval user in. There she is. That's good. Thank you very much. We'll have some of that. We're going to put an action in, approval action. And we're going to say, mark the task as rejected when it gets rejected. And then lastly, what we want to do is run the script. So let's get the script, drop that there. And this is where I need to go back to ServiceNow, hold on a sec, and copy that script code. There we go. And paste that in, right? So as simple as that, I can put the script usage in, bang, bang, bang. So begin, approve, deny, or accept, and run the script. Okay. Next thing to do is to publish it, I believe, and I think I can test it somewhere as well. Okay. If I click here, start workflow. Now, what's key here is how do I know that it's working? Well, we're going to check CloudFORMS. So there you go. It's gone for approval, and it's gone straight to end. Okay. So let's go into CloudFORMS. Come on, baby. Okay, so here's CloudFORMS. We refresh the queue. We're now just waiting for some reason it hasn't actually ran this state. So that's it. Okay. Well, there's the first failure for today in my session. For some reason, it's not going through the run script execution point. Not quite sure why. I'll work it out later. But you can see from the workflow engine of ServiceNow, you can drag and drop from the right-hand side approvals. You can put quotas in here. Obviously, you can put status checks. So you could add in more run script scriptlets in here to say, right, that after I've executed the actual provision, I want to then go back and go and find out what the progress is of it. And if the progress says provisioned okay, then I want you to end. Otherwise, I want you to start looping around. And I want you to, you can see here on the right-hand side, you've got timers. So you can put a timer in that says, you know, let's come back and let's go and check every 30 seconds to see the status. And if the status matches any of these, then I want you to go and update the user, maybe send an email. So you can do all of that inside of ServiceNow, and you can use the ServiceNow, drag and drop designer to achieve that. I'm going to open it up to questions on the floor, because that's where we are up to. Does anybody have any questions to the ServiceNow integration? Okay, so just to cover off with you guys, those CloudFORMS instances that you've got, there is some good stuff in there. If you've been doing the lab, if you did the previous lab auto scaling and you did the lab today, then there's stuff there that you probably want to export as a data store, keep for yourself, and so on. You can have those instances up until the end of tonight, and then I'll have them destroyed, probably at, let's see, say 8 o'clock tonight. So 8 p.m. tonight, they'll be destroyed. The ServiceNow instance you can use at any time. All we ask is that you don't destroy it, okay? So ServiceNow URL is manageiqdev.servicenow.com, okay? You can go in there and you can create SOAP provisioning requests. You can link them up to your own CloudFORMS as long as they're public-facing, because this is a public-facing ServiceNow instance. And you can try it out yourself. If you want any help with ServiceNow, clearly I'm not the person to come to, only joking. If you want any help with ServiceNow, come to me and I'll get the right person or see if I can help myself. Otherwise, if that's it, there's no questions on the chat window, I'll hand it back to Martin to close off. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Once again, great presentation, lots of details, lots of insight. I think we're pretty much closed on the dot. I'll stop the recording now, and yeah, we'll reconvene tomorrow with more sessions. Thank you again, John, and have fun in Singapore.
Cheers.